In May 2020, amid the sweltering heat of Manaus, one of the most bustling cities in the Amazon region of Brazil, a young woman with a radiant smile and dreams of becoming Miss Brazil suddenly vanished after a date with her boyfriend. No one could have imagined that just hours earlier, she had posted a sweet Mother's Day message to her mom on social media. A beautiful photo, a loving caption, and it would be the last sign of life. Her name was Kimberly Karen Mota, 22 years old, Miss Manicure 2019, a young woman who had everything: youth, beauty, ambition, and a bright future ahead. But in just one night, everything was taken away. From a story of romantic love that turned into a deadly obsession, to the pursuit of a killer across the jungle borderlands of Venezuela, this is one of Brazil's most shocking cases, forcing us to ask, when love becomes possession, what remains? Join Crime Documentary Files as we explore today's case. Kimberly Karen Mota was born on February 26, 1998, in the city of Manicure, Amazonas State, Brazil. She was the only daughter in her family, alongside two younger brothers, and shared an incredibly close bond with her mother, Nayla. The relationship between mother and daughter was special, like friends, like soulmates. Because Nayla wasn't just a mother, but the greatest source of inspiration in Kimberly's life. From a young age, Kimberly showed confidence and ease in front of the camera. She loved photography, loved the stage lights, and carried within her the dream of becoming a model. As she grew up, she began participating in beauty pageants and taking small modeling jobs, from paid advertisements to amateur photo shoots, all with one goal: to make the name Kimberly Mota known to many. She practiced every step on the catwalk to perfection, refined every gesture, every smile, every pose. Kimberly worked tirelessly to maintain her figure, learned how to pose, express herself, and project her most confident presence. This persistence helped her win many titles, most notably Miss Manicure 2019. She didn't stop there. She also made it to the finals of Miss Amazonas and planned to compete again the following year. Behind the glamour, few knew how much Kimberly had sacrificed to reach that position: time, energy, and her youth. She was determined, persistent, and above all, it was work she absolutely loved. What made the relationship between Kimberly and her mother Nayla so deeply connected was that they shared the same passion. In her youth, Nayla had also worn the crown of Miss Manicure, so between mother and daughter, there existed a unique bond of understanding. A love for beauty, for the stage, for the glittering lights of the pageant world. Nayla wasn't just a loving mother, but also an advisor, a companion throughout Kimberly's journey pursuing her dreams. In 2019, Kimberly left her hometown to move to Manaus to study dentistry at university while pursuing her beauty dreams. At 21, she was both a diligent student and an ambitious model. Kimberly's uncle, Henry, her mother's younger brother, lived in Manaus, just a few blocks from the university she attended. So when she left home to start a new chapter in her life, Kimberly chose to live with her uncle. She felt safe and comfortable because Henry was someone she trusted absolutely. One evening after class, Kimberly went out with a group of friends to a small bar in the city center. It was here that she met Rafael Fernandez Rodriguez, a 31-year-old man. Rafael had moved to Manaus in 2017 after going through a divorce and was currently working as a forensic analyst. He was nearly 10 years older than Kimberly, appeared mature and calm, but his private life was a murky void. No one knew much about his family, friends, or true personality. However, what Kimberly didn't know was that Rafael had known about her beforehand. He had been following her on social media for a long time. He knew quite a bit about Kimberly, while she had no idea that the stranger approaching her in the bar that day was a silent acquaintance on Instagram. Rafael struck up a conversation confidently, invited Kimberly to the dance floor, offered to buy her a drink. But Kimberly politely declined. She smiled and courteously said she was just out with friends and wasn't looking for any relationship. The conversation ended there, brief, seemingly harmless. No one suspected that this fleeting moment would open the door to an irreversible tragedy in the young woman's life. The strange thing was that from the beginning, Raphael never told Kimberly he already knew who she was. He had been following her on Instagram for a long time, knew about her life, interests, even her friends, but pretended as if this was their first meeting. After being politely rejected by Kimberly at the bar, Raphael didn't give up. In the following days, he began messaging her constantly on Instagram, liking numerous photos, sending multiple messages hoping to meet up. Although Kimberly didn't respond, he persisted until somehow Raphael got her WhatsApp number. And then, a barrage of messages began. Eventually, she responded. At first, just brief conversations, but gradually they met up, went out, and by March 2020, the two were officially dating. At first, everything seemed sweet. Raphael appeared thoughtful and caring, making Kimberly think this might be a mature man she could trust. But just a few months later, that picture began to crack. Kimberly started telling friends that Raphael wasn't what she thought. He was jealous, possessive, and gradually revealed his controlling nature. He frequently checked her phone, looking at messages, photos, contacts, then questioned her about every friend, every picture she posted. Everything quickly became suffocating. There was no reason for Raphael to act this way, because Kimberly had never betrayed him or given him reason to lose trust. But he still doubted, still searched, still tried to control every small detail of her life. From then on, their relationship began shifting from romantic to frightening. At this point, they had just started dating and were only beginning to get to know each other, yet he was already acting controlling and obsessive. He even forbade Kimberly from having male friends, demanded she not post certain images on social media, and constantly questioned where she was, what she was doing, who she was talking to whenever they weren't together. Every conversation gradually turned into interrogations, making Kimberly feel exhausted and trapped. She told friends that Raphael wanted to control every aspect of her life, from work and clothing to personal relationships. What's notable is that all these behaviors occurred just 2 months into dating, a period too short for someone to start imposing, being jealous and controlling like that. And honestly, whether 2 months or 5 years, having someone decide who you can talk to and what you can post on social media is never acceptable. That relationship, for Kimberly, gradually became a cage. After a few months, she felt so suffocated she couldn't bear it anymore. She told friends she'd had enough and wanted to end everything. At 22, Kimberly had an entire future wide open. The dentistry program she was studying, her dream of becoming Miss Brazil, and a life full of opportunities ahead. She didn't want to sacrifice it all for a man who made her lose her freedom and joy of living. Although Raphael tried to hold on with gifts, flowers, and lavish dinners, Kimberly understood these were just temporary remedies masking his true nature. Deep down, she knew this love couldn't be saved, and those gifts could never fill the fear growing in her heart. Raphael seemed to believe that expensive gifts or fancy dinners were enough to erase all his mistakes. But Kimberly was different. She was too tired of the repeating cycles. Apologies, gifts, then arguments again. She said plainly that those gifts couldn't change the nature of a relationship becoming increasingly suffocating and frightening. And then, Mother's Day. Sunday, May 10th, 2020, on Instagram, she posted a photo with her mother, with a touching caption. That photo, with the radiant smiles of mother and daughter, became Kimberly's last post. Afterward, she prepared for a morning jog with Uncle Henry, some of his friends, and boyfriend Raphael. Henry recalled that day, everything between Kimberly and Raphael seemed normal. They talked cheerfully, no signs of tension or conflict. When the jog ended, Kimberly told her uncle she'd be hanging out with a friend during the day and would text him when she was coming home. Late that evening, around 10:30 p.m., Kimberly texted telling her uncle not to lock the door because she'd be home late and didn't want to wake him. She added that Raphael would drive her home. That message was brief, warm, and normal like always, but it was also the last contact between her and her family. The next morning, when the sun rose, Henry suddenly noticed the door still slightly ajar, the house unusually quiet. Kimberly hadn't come home. Not believing his eyes, he checked his phone, called her. No one answered. A feeling of unease crept in, because Kimberly had never broken a promise. She had clearly said she'd be home that night. And now, a chilling premonition began to appear in her uncle's heart. that perhaps something terrible had happened. At this point, Uncle Henry's intuition became truly heavy. Kimberly was always careful and thoughtful. Wherever she went, whatever she did, she'd text her mother and uncle. But this time, the phone was completely silent. He called repeatedly dozens of times, but only heard the ringtone stretching into hopelessness. He tried contacting Raphael, but the result was the same. No one answered. When Kimberly's friends also messaged Henry saying they couldn't reach her, the unease in his heart immediately turned into real fear. A 22-year-old girl who always lived responsibly and had never disappeared without reason, now suddenly silent. Friends, relatives, and even her boyfriend all out of contact. This couldn't be coincidence. Without hesitation, Henry immediately got in his car and drove straight to Raphael's apartment. He knocked many times, called out Kimberly's name loudly, but no one answered. The apartment was eerily silent. He tried calling again, still no signal. The feeling at that moment, as he later recounted, was an emptiness spreading throughout my body. Henry began to believe with certainty that something terrible had happened. Right after, he went to the police station to report both missing, but instead of receiving help, he only met indifference. Police thought that Kimberly was 22, Raphael 31. Both were adults, could be somewhere together, and there was no reason to open an investigation. Some even said maybe they're just on a weekend getaway. But Henry understood his niece well. Kimberly wasn't the type to disappear without word. If she went somewhere, she'd say so. If she was busy, she'd text. She would never let her mother and uncle worry like this. And when the person who understood Kimberly best began to feel afraid, it could only mean one thing: that something terrible had truly happened. Because police showed indifference, Kimberly's family had to take action themselves. They posted photos of Kimberly and Raphael all over social media, along with desperate pleas hoping anyone with information about the couple would contact them immediately. Each post was a ray of hope, that perhaps she was still alive, that maybe everything was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, everyone began to feel anxious. And then, in the early morning of May 12th, 2020, around 4 a.m., that fear became reality. When police were forced to break down Raphael's apartment door to find clues, they discovered a horrifying scene. In the bedroom, Kimberly's body was found under a bedsheet, lying in a pool of cold blood with multiple deep stab wounds to her neck and abdomen. On the balcony, they found the kitchen knife, the murder weapon, covered in blood, still clearly showing fingerprints. Bloody footprints appeared scattered across the floor, leading from the bedroom to the door. The room was shrouded in frigid air because the air conditioning was still running at extremely low temperature, as if someone deliberately kept it running continuously to slow decomposition and mask the smell of the corpse. At this point, all initial theories collapsed. If before, people thought maybe both had gone missing or had an accident, now all clues pointed in one direction. Raphael was the perpetrator. His image was quickly spread across news sites and social media. Police immediately issued a nationwide warrant, warning the public that this man was extremely dangerous and might be trying to flee Brazil. Kimberly's friends told police she had been thinking about ending the relationship, so perhaps that night she tried to break up, and that was what caused Raphael to do this terrible thing. And honestly, it seemed like a very realistic possibility. And for police, this was basically the only explanation for why Raphael did this. The next day, May 13th, police tracked Raphael's car to Caracarai, about 370 miles from her home. According to highway cameras, Raphael was driving very fast because, at this point it seems this was when he left the apartment and was fleeing the crime scene. So he was driving so fast that when he was going around a curve, he actually crashed and flipped the car onto its side, which is crazy. When police released surveillance footage from the night of the murder, everyone shuddered. In the video, Raphael walked out of the building alone, his face calm, his gait eerily composed. No signs of fear, no rush, no confusion, as if he had just left a normal date, not just left his girlfriend's body in the apartment. That image shocked all of Brazil. 3 days later, on May 15th, Police received a tip that Raphael was hiding in a remote forest area, hundreds of miles from the scene. When the pursuit team arrived, they found him sheltering in a makeshift hut, built with some wooden boards and palm leaves, as if he had prepared to live hidden for a long time. The scene was unbelievable. Someone who once had a stable job and high income, now living like a fugitive deep in the forest. But the arrest wasn't easy. Before police could approach, they were attacked by 6 strange men, bodyguards Raphael had hired to protect himself. He had paid them a large sum, so they were willing to fight back, even though they had no idea they were confronting police. A melee erupted in the forest, machetes flashing, shouts and warning shots ringing out in the dark night. Finally, police subdued the group and explained they were protecting a murderer. Hearing this, the men immediately dropped their weapons, shocked and declaring they had no idea Raphael was wanted for such a brutal crime. One even said, "We thought he was just running from debt." After understanding, they voluntarily let police arrest Raphael, saying, "Please, take him away. We don't want anything to do with him anymore." Finally, Raphael was arrested and detained on charges of murdering Kimberly Mota. 2 of the people he hired to help him hide, a 24-year-old and a 17-year-old teenager, were also arrested for harboring a criminal and assisting a suspect's escape. At the police station, Raphael confessed to all his actions, and what he recounted made anyone who heard it shudder. According to his statement, on the night of the incident, Raphael picked up Kimberly at a friend's house. Then they both returned to his apartment. At first, everything went normally. They ate, talked, even joked with each other. But just a small moment after that turned that evening into tragedy. When Kimberly went into the bathroom, she left her phone on the bed. Raphael, who already had a jealous and controlling personality, couldn't resist curiosity. He opened her phone, searched through every message, every app, every tiny notification. And then he discovered some messages from male friends, which, in his extreme obsession and jealousy, he saw as evidence of betrayal. Anger erupted in Raphael. He stated he couldn't stand seeing her talk to other men, that she made him lose control. In that moment, reason completely disappeared. Raphael went straight to the kitchen, grabbed the largest knife, hid it in his waistband, and returned to the bedroom. He waited for Kimberly to come out of the bathroom so he could confront her. When Kimberly finished showering, she stepped out of the bathroom, dried her hair, then lay down on the bed next to Raphael, completely unaware that the man beside her was hiding a knife in his waistband and harboring anger ready to explode. Immediately, Raphael began questioning her about the messages he had just read on her phone. According to Raphael's testimony, Kimberly lied straight to his face, denying everything and explaining that they were just messages sent from others. She didn't reply and had no relationship with them. But in Raphael's mind at that moment, reason had completely vanished. He believed she was deceiving him, and that was what made him lose control. Immediately, Raphael pulled out the knife and stabbed repeatedly into Kimberly's neck and abdomen. The 22-year-old girl, once full of dreams and energy, had no chance to fight back. Everything happened in seconds, too fast, too cruel. Just a minute before, she was still lying next to the man she loved, and a minute later, he had become the murderer who took her life. Thinking about that moment truly makes one shudder. Kimberly must have been terrified and confused, not understanding what was happening, not understanding why the person who once said he loved her could act this way. Just because of a few innocent messages, Raphael had turned a small conflict into a bloody nightmare. After killing Kimberly, Raphael didn't call an ambulance, didn't seek help. He just pulled the bedsheet over her body and left. Not a tear, not a word of remorse. Just the terrible silence of a crime that nothing could justify. On October 27, 2021, the trial of Rafael Fernandez Rodriguez officially began, although it had been delayed due to the pandemic. One of Rafael's main defenses was that he suffered from mental disorders and therefore wasn't competent to stand trial. As a result, he had to undergo a series of psychological tests. Ultimately, experts determined that Rafael was fully capable of participating in the trial. Throughout the trial, a total of 9 witnesses were called, including 5 from the prosecution and 4 from Raphael's defense. Along with witness testimony, DNA evidence and surveillance video were presented, confirming the true timeline of what Raphael did after he killed Kimberly. Right after killing her, Raphael tried to move Kimberly's body, perhaps to hide it. But when he realized there was blood everywhere and her body was too heavy, he panicked. In his panic, he called his father, Milton Rodriguez, and told him about the crime he had just committed. After hearing this horrific phone call, Milton advised his son to turn himself in immediately, but Raphael refused. He decided to run instead of face the consequences. Raphael left his apartment, threw Kimberly's phone into the forest to erase all traces, and began his escape. During this process, he flipped his car in Caracaray but still didn't stop. He then hitchhiked to Boa Vista, where he withdrew cash from a bank. However, when he tried to cross the border into Venezuela, authorities refused him entry. He then hid in the forest and hired bodyguards to protect himself. Raphael justified his actions by saying he wasn't thinking clearly and everything just happened in a moment of anger. He claimed Kimberly had lied to him, which he knew wasn't true, and that's why he lost control. However, Raphael's testimony is only his perspective. We can't know for sure whether he's telling the truth, whether Kimberly actually lied, or if there simply was nothing to lie about. What Raphael said is just the reason he gave to justify his brutal actions. Many questioned the truth in his defense, and some didn't believe Raphael's story was accurate. Some believed the truth might be that Kimberly had tried to break up with him, and when he couldn't accept it, he exploded in jealousy and control. This reflects an "if I can't have you, no one can" situation, an extreme and violent possession. On October 28, 2021, after everything that happened, Raphael was sentenced to only 14 years in prison. This was a sentence that made many feel unjust, because this punishment could never be proportionate to the cruel act he committed against Kimberly, a young woman with a promising future. Kimberly Mota's case closed with a sentence many felt was unjust. Rafael Fernandez Rodriguez received only 14 years in prison for the brutal act that took the life of a young woman full of aspirations and dreams. Although he confessed to the crime and had reasons to justify his actions, nothing can erase the truth that Kimberly had to endure a painful death just because of a controlling and obsessive relationship. Kimberly Mota had a bright future ahead with her career and great dreams, but everything was taken away cruelly and senselessly. Her story is not only a reminder about the dangers of toxic relationships, but also a warning about possession and control in love. And that's today's case. What are your thoughts on this case? Share in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us and not miss other gripping cases. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.